Hey, how's it going, everybody? How many of you have noticed there have been more and more people out of Hollywood talking about Jesus, talking about God, talking about their faith? And not just on YouTube, on the internet in general. Like, I've seen podcasts, I've seen like internet personalities talk about it. And I mean, we've had Chris Pratt, now Alan Richtson, which is what we're going to be talking about today. I don't know if you guys have seen the show Reacher. It's a show on Amazon Prime. The character is called Jack Reacher. And the show is called Reacher. You might also know Alan Richtson from Smallville from back in the day. He played Aquaman on that show. But this video is entitled "Some Say I Can't Be a Christian and Play Reacher." I watched a little bit of it, and the points he's bringing up, I think it's going to be an interesting topic to discuss. So let's jump into this. Shout out Insta Church. I think this is his channel, and it doesn't seem like he's using his name, his celebrity, to promote the channel either. So I think that's cool. Insta Church. He has multiple videos. Alan Richtson has multiple videos on the channel. So let's check this out. Some say I can't be a Christian and play Reacher. And Reacher is a pretty violent show. It's an action show. So you see where this is going. Well, let's check this out.
I love playing Reacher. I love telling this story. I love playing a character who creates a kind of moral ambiguity that we should struggle against as we consider whether or not what he's doing is good all the time or morally right. I think that kind of thing is fun and fascinating, and I think escaping to that world as an audience, hopefully it's as enjoyable for you as it is for me to help bring it to life. But it's funny to me how a lot of people criticize me, supposed Christians especially, criticize me for playing Reacher, as if the only TV that should exist is seeing people silently folding their hands in the pew of a church. I mean, what kind of stories are we supposed to tell? If you look at Scripture, what do you find?
I mean, I don't think people expect everybody to sit in church and silently fold their hands and that be the only thing we watch on TV. But I'm imagining people are saying from the Christian perspective, or just from a more conservative, that type of perspective, Reacher is a violent show, and not just Reacher. There's so many violent things in movies and games. Is that something we should indulge in? I, for one, watched Reacher season 1. I haven't seen season 2, and I liked it. It was a pretty good show. Let me hear him out a little bit more. Let's see what he's thinking.
1,000 years of an infinitely holy God holding tension with human beings as he tells the story of who he is, reveals who he is through an imperfect people. So we get stories of paganism and war and bloodshed and ghost stories, mysticism. We see miracles and magic, and we see life and resurrection and death, and we see this incredible canvas where God is completely unafraid to tell the story of who he is through less than morally ambiguous characters, through pure evil sometimes. So I think it's...
I see where he's coming from. I see where he's coming from, because the Bible has some pretty vile things in it, right? Does that mean God condones everything that's in it? It's a recording of what took place. But see, that's where I think the distinction lies. We're talking about a fictional character, a TV show, and what the Bible is recording is what happened. So there's a difference between telling God's story. Like, he's talking about, hey, God told a story. He told who he was through these stories. What stories? The ones in the Bible. But guess what? They're not fictional stories. It's just what happened, and that's what's recorded. We nowadays are telling stories through movies and TV shows and books, comics, and all that stuff. And we're using violence and broken characters, as he mentioned, imperfect people, to convey a message. God actually used imperfect people to create a message. We're writing stories about imperfect people to convey a message. There's a distinction there. So I'm just playing devil's advocate to what I'm hearing, okay? I see where he's coming from. But should we indulge in violence? Because God, by using imperfect people and all, and like God used war as a means to an end, you know? He commanded Joshua to go and fight and kill people. So, but the thing is, that happened. You know, it's not like we are telling a story about, we're making it up, you know? I think that's where the distinction lies. So it can become a fantasy, you know? It's like, hey, this is cool. That's why I'm writing about it. That's why I'm creating a movie about it. And this is, it can quickly evolve into something else, right? A lot of times what I like to think is, what would Jesus do? Would Jesus watch Reacher? Or when you put Reacher on, would you be cool with Jesus sitting right next to you watching it? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Would he care? I don't know. I mean, it's not a big, like, Jesus was a big picture thinker, you know? Would he really care? Like, if you were a good person and all that stuff, I don't think he would really care, to be honest. But, I mean, obviously there's some things that we watch that we probably shouldn't be watching, you know? But let's hear more what Alan's got to say. Because I'm not completely against what he's saying. I'm just, like I said, I'm playing devil's advocate to what I'm hearing. And like I said, I watched the show and I liked it, so.
Laughable when people criticize me for playing characters that are not like saintly. You know, that's not my job, and I don't think God cares about only telling those kinds of stories. I think we can start conversations.
That's the distinction. God's not telling a story. It's just what happened.
I think God enjoys. And so here we are now, where we can get to the heart of the matter, where God has built a platform because of this show for me, where I can reach people who maybe don't think about these things all the time, and maybe for those who are struggling or feel lost or want to try something new, they can find something that brings them hope, like My Faith Has Mine. And so to go back to the heart of the matter, I think we only have to look at the first 2 verses of the Bible to see who God is, the purpose of what he's doing, and what he wants to do in your life, and where that tension exists once humanity enters the equation. In verse 1, we get this. Now, God created the heaven and the earth, the heavens and the earth. We see that God is a creator. But what kind of creator? We go to verse 2 to find out. It says, now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters representing chaos. The earth formless and empty. The Hebrew word for formless and empty is tovu vavohu. It means wild and waste. There was nothing but wild and waste in the beginning. We sort of skip over the Big Bang and we've got the planets forming and coalescing, but it's wild and waste. There's no good there yet. There's nothing usable. It's empty. And God's Spirit is hovering over the waters. And out of that, he creates a garden that is enviable among angels and man, the Garden of Eden. He creates humanity. He begins this saga that is epic. An epic saga of love out of the wild and the waste. Yeah. And I think that is exactly what God intended in the first 2 verses of the Bible to be revealed, that he is a good creator, and that out of the wild, the waste, and the empty of your life, he can create a garden if you let him. But the difficulty is the fact that when God wills himself over creation and says, out of this wild and waste, just with my breath, I will animate goodness and gardens and sunsets and sunrises and humanity that will learn slowly how to love each other. When it comes to people, he's a little standoffish because he doesn't want to breach free will, because he wants to respect the fact and see what you do with this opportunity to invite the Spirit in that hovers over you, or to try to do it on your own and stay in the wild and the waste and be the king and Lord over the emptiness. Would you rather be the king and the God of the emptiness and the wild and the waste, or would you rather participate under one who is the infinite, holy, good creator of all, in his garden, participate in that garden? That is the question that we face in the first 2 verses of the Bible. That is the heart of the matter. And when we are distracted with other questions of like, can you possibly be a Christian and play a character like Reacher? We're missing that moment, that confrontation that God is waiting for in all of our lives. And for some of us, it comes sooner than others. I hope if you haven't confronted that question yet, that this conversation helps bring you to it sooner. Do you want to be the God of emptiness, wild, and waste? Or do you want to be a servant in a garden?
Okay, so he made a good point. God is taking the wild and the waste, and he's creating a beautiful garden. He's taking the formless and the void, and he's creating something new, something beautiful, right? And the only way you get to the something beautiful is if you start with something like the wild and the waste, something formless and void. So you have that story arc, right? If we're taking it back to film, taking it back to like TV and movies. So, from Alan's point of view, he's saying you need the flawed people. You need the imperfect character in order to go on that hero's journey, in order to go on that journey of development and tell a story of growth, right? You can't have perfect people all the time. It's not relatable as a story for viewers in a story, right? And that does make sense. My question is there a line? Is there a line of imperfection? You know, because okay, let's talk about Reacher. There's no mention of God in Reacher, season 1 at least, right? There's no real redemptive arc. He was a good guy from the beginning, right? He's a soldier. He's got skills and he fights. He's elite. You know what I mean? I don't want to give any spoilers for the show, but I see what he's saying by telling stories through imperfect characters. That makes sense. But what I feel like people who are calling him out for playing Reacher are probably calling him out like, why are you playing a violent character? I don't know what happened in season 2. Why are you playing a violent character? It's not like there weren't violent people in the Bible, and that's Alan Richson's point. There were violent people in the Bible, and God used violent people and violent acts for his will. Like, look at the Old Testament. How many violent things happened? You know, how many the acts of war that happened in the Old Testament. So, I think the distinction is drawn between what happened in the Bible actually happened. What we're watching is something that is created by man. Would God want us to mimic violence and act it out for entertainment and then watch violence for entertainment? Because that's what's happening here. It's not like what happened in the Bible actually happened and it's being recorded, and God is using these events to further his mission. It's different. And I think that's where people are struggling with when they say things like this. Some say, I can't be a Christian and play Reacher. I think that's where those people were coming from when they were telling Alan Richtson that he shouldn't play the character. You shouldn't glorify violence. You shouldn't be in a show where that's the focus. So, should we watch violent movies and TV shows? I think that's the bigger question. I think that comes down to personal preference, to your individual conscience. If that form of media is taking away your focus from your relationship with God, then don't watch it. Don't watch it. Our goal is to keep our focus on him, and if something comes in the way of that, we may have to get rid of that thing. And for Alan's point, telling a story through the eyes of an imperfect character, I get that. You need that arc. You need that journey to show growth. But then again, there's a balance there. How far do we push that imperfectness? How violent do we go? How, all that stuff. There's a balance there. Are we glorifying violence? Those are the questions that need to be asked. So those are some of my thoughts on the topic. What are your thoughts? Are you okay with violent movies, TV shows, and games, or do you think we need to pull back a bit? Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.